It's my great pleasure to be here. This beautiful place of Naperville in a city like Chicago, and it's such a big place. And the first thing I asked was how much more potential development can be done. So they said all expansion behind, and also you can raise yourself even to the top. Everything is possible here. So such a big and huge place here in Chicago. So nice experience. His Holiness Ramapad Swami Maharaj has really put a lot of effort having that Chicago temple, Keshwari temple, and this such a huge place here, and such a nice group of devotees who are residing all around. Yes, Premananda Mataji had requested me, and it was not just a request, it's also my pleasure to be of some use to the community here. And originally we were planning something like a seminar where I would also give some handouts and PowerPoint and so many other things, but because there was some delay in the communication and also by setting it up, therefore in all those things I didn't get enough time to plan the whole thing properly. Generally, I speak on the subjects of Ramayana and Mahabharata because I also love those topics. And those topics relate to our day-to-day life more than any other topics. Generally, I do 9-day seminars on Ramayana of the 9 Katha, 9 Ramnavami, 9 days. But I was just requested to speak something, so we had just 2 or 3 sessions. I also forgot my notes, which I had prepared for so many years. I am doing the programs. I forgot my notes in India. So I have scribbled something out of my existing so many seminars in my brain and put it down on a piece of paper. So please excuse me for that. But those who are hearing for the first time, you'll be amazed with the details in which Ramayana has been explained in our scriptures. Unfortunately, in modern times, religiosity or spirituality is not related or the modern society does not give some rationality to it. At best, they say that people who are religious and spiritual have a bit of morality, and morality is essential for the maintenance of the society. You need good people in the society, and therefore spirituality is good. If you see from a politician's perspective, a president of any country or a prime minister of any country whoever is the head of the country, or the kings. If you go in Middle East, there are no prime ministers and presidents. If they are like servants. There you can actually feel what a king is. If anybody has been to the Middle East, you will realize that. What a king is. When I first went to the Middle East, that was the first experience of mine of kingship. I was not a king, I was just a tourist there. But the feeling of what it means to be in a kingdom. And I learned the governing of those places through the chief advisor of the king of one of the primary countries in the Middle East. So he was the chief advisor of the king, and he explained to me how the whole Middle East works, how the kingship works, how the organization works. And I was just reflecting that more or less the whole management of that kingship is exactly the way our scriptures speak. Suddenly Ramayana and Mahabharata started making a lot of sense. Because the kind of strategies they adopt, the economic policies they adopt, how they, at many places, almost every country, the king has many queens. And for each queen, they have separate palaces. Somebody has 6 queens, so he has 6 palaces. And all palaces are spread out a little bit. Not very near. Sometimes too much closeness is not good. These days in families, people have become so nuclear that even within those 4 people, they want to keep their distance. So the queens so separately. Huge palaces, unbelievable wealth. And probably I feel that Middle East is one of the richest place on the earth because of whatever oil it has. They have something real in hand, at least at this point of time. Unbelievable. And you actually feel what a king is. Just recently, some of the kings, I will not name the kings of which country because that becomes a political thing. But some of the kings, they just went to some countries in Europe just recently. And they saw some airlines and they just liked it and they just studied what is the business. In 10 minutes, they said, oh, there are so many passengers in this route, how many people come to the, okay, I want to buy this airline. Within 10 minutes they decided, and they just, before even the completion of their vacation, they bought that airline. They don't have to think. That is a king. Unbelievable wealth, unbelievable treasure. When you read Ramayana and Mahabharata, you hear such kind of kings. They had so much wealth, so much treasure. When we read stories from Bhagavatam or Ramayana, Mahabharata, and we hear that the king said this, king said that, sometimes this word king makes us feel that it is irrelevant. Because nowadays there are no kings, it's just a democratic society. But even in a democratic society, there are some rulers. You may name them as the Prime Minister and President, who change every 5 or 6 years depending on the construction of the Constitution. But the main principle is, there is a ruler, there is somebody who guides, there is somebody who follows. And there is a whole system in between the ruler and the follower, what we call as administrators, who oversee the administration on behalf of the ruler or the king. So that is the formation of a structure of a society at the primary stage. So at no time these scriptures are invalid because these stories don't have any fairy tale concepts like you hear in Harry Potter or some kind of totally fairy tale. There is nothing real which is existing. If you read Ramayana, Mahabharata, you really, even now today you have kings, you have rulers, you have the same politics, same strategies going on. All these things are happening. Most amazing part is, when you read it, you will realize, you will be amazed at the details at which Krishna discusses politics with the Pandavas. You'll be amazed at the details with which Ram discusses all the strategies, even during the Yuddha in the forest. Before leaving Ayodhya, how Ram discusses all those things. And those things are so deep, so profound, that currently in India, the economic advisors are learning how to formulate the policies of India based on the ancient wisdom. It is so real, it is so practical. Taxation system is mentioned. How much percent tax should be taken from the farmers, how much from the businessmen, and what kind of business. Those who are in steel and mining kind of businesses, they should be taxed this much. Those who are ordinary workers, who are service people, who are supporting it, they should be only taxed this much. Tax slab and all those things are given. Unbelievable details. Somehow we didn't learn. You'll be amazed to know that Ramayana and Mahabharata are compulsory subjects in Indonesian schools. Indonesia is a country which is 90% Muslim and 10% Hindus. Only one island, Bali, of Indonesia, which you must have heard. Bali is one of the famous places, tourism place. That is 90% Hindus. But otherwise the rest of Indonesia is a Muslim country. The Prime Minister recently made a statement of that country when he was asked that why do you have Ramayana and Mahabharata as your one of the main course of studies, even though you are a Muslim country. So he said that irrespective of what religion Ramayana or Mahabharata come from, the kind of values and the kind of knowledge it imparts to individuals is so high that it is favorable for any class of citizens of the world. And he suggested that in my view, Ramayana and Mahabharata should be taught to every person who is born. And amazingly, if you speak this in India, or you dare to speak this, you will become a communal. Or even in America. There's a whole, people are scared. One religion may take over the other. Sanatana Dharma is not like that. There are references in various arguments about the kings and emperors, how they existed. So, in between, I'll just relate to the modern social structure along with the flow of stories. In the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, text number 76, after Sanjay speaks this entire philosophy of Bhagavad Gita to Dhritarashtra, I assume that you know the basic names of Ramayana characters and Mahabharata, some basic information. So Dhritarashtra spoke to, Sanjay spoke to Dhritarashtra. He said, Rajan samsmritya samvadam vidamadbhutam. Hey Rajan, O king, as I am remembering samsmritya, again and again as I am remembering this discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, samvadam idam adbhutam. What an adbhut samvad, what a great discussion. Keshava Arjunayoh punyam, between these two, Rishyami cha mahurmu. I am feeling excited, thrilled at every moment. The discussion between Arjuna and Krishna, how was it so thrilling? Because the thrill was only after the war began. What was so thrilling? When Sanjay heard the information, he heard that this information, one who has it and one who understands it, this information can potentially deliver a person from the cycle of birth and death. Every living entity is suffering in this cycle of birth and death. Srila Prabhupada at innumerable places, he says all the problems in this world are for all of us individually is because of this one basic problem of birth and death. But we don't identify birth and death as main problems. Our main problems are some devotee, some person, some relative, some boss, some this, some that. How many of us daily think birth is a real problem? Our ego, our envy, our pride, lust, greed, all these anarthas, they create secondary problems and they project it as primary in front of our lives. And we never think that birth is a problem, death is a problem. We don't think. One who understands this, he will therefore relish and get thrilled at every moment. Just like a person in captivity, if he gets an opportunity to come out, or if he gets one person who is going to tell that you are captive for 14 years, 20 years, 100 years, whatever. I have a map of the jail how to break through. That person becomes your best friend. And it's naturally you are excited even before release. That now I got it and now we have established contacts. In just a couple of days, I am going to go. Things have not yet happened, it's just in the mind. Similarly, a person who understands, one who realizes that these three modes of nature are captivating me, are binding me, he will actually deeply appreciate all this knowledge. Otherwise it will just remain just an information. Just like many other stories, then Ramayana and Mahabharata will be one of the fairy tales, like Harry Potter or whatever, Lord of the Rings or I don't know the latest ones. I'm always behind time as far as those things are concerned. So Bhagavatam says, Nivritti Tarsher Upagiyamana Bhav Aushadha Shotra Mano Abhiramat. These descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord are actually medicine for the conditioned soul who is suffering from the Bhavarog. Bhavarog means the disease of this material existence. Material existence is not a disease on its own, but our fascination for the material existence, it is a disease. The 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam explains how this material world is a great forest, a place of great forest of enjoyment. Why does it compare as a forest of enjoyment? Just like in a forest, animals are having their pleasure, no doubt. But their pleasures are constantly inflicted with the elements of fear, insecurity. You see a lion or tiger, you see Discovery channels, they show live how a tiger actually pounces on a deer and it kills. And then it is licking the blood. So it's enjoying at that time. But at all other times, but even while enjoying that, he's so alert that somebody else should not shoot me, somebody should not kill me. No rival tiger or lion should come and attack. So forest, this material world is considered a forest of material enjoyment. You may be enjoying some fruits and roots and swimming in the rivers, taking bath in the streams, composing poems under the moonlight in the beautiful forest. Different kinds of people having a different experience in the forest. Camping. Somebody is wild, somebody is chirping beautiful sounds. All those things are existing in a forest. Beautiful birds, beautiful landscape. Everything is there. But it's all in the environment of insecurity, fear, constant fear of death. That is this material world. Constant fear. Very rarely we see somebody who is peaceful these days. To see ecstasy is inconceivable. To see peace is a very, very big thing. So therefore, for this material existence, the Bhagavatam explains, the more we hear the description of Lord and His pastimes, it not only gives us the thrill or the joys which we require, ordinary, which we see through movies, but it also elevates our consciousness. Mundane stories and mundane pastimes don't have deeper analysis. I'm sorry. So I will now go in the assembly of Dashrath right away from here. Because today we are actually discussing on this topic of the psychology of envy. How mantra poisons the mind of Kaikeyi. That is our first part. King Dashrath, we all know, after a very long time he got 4 sons after doing the yajna. And he was very much delighted when Ram and Lakshman were young. At that time Vishwamitra took them away, trained them in various arts, got some services done through them. Later he was given back in the kingdom. While returning back to Ayodhya, Ram and Lakshman, Ram won over Sita and brought Sita also to the kingdom. And there was a very joyous celebration in the whole of Ayodhya. Especially when you get something after a very, very long time. After 36,000 years of efforts, Dashrath had got a son. That is something. When you are trying to have a child and you don't have a child for many, many years, can you imagine 36,000 years? This itself puts a value tag on what is the price of these 4 children. They have come after 36,000 years. And not ordinarily, after a great tapasya, lot of effort, yajna done under the guidance of Vasishtha and Vishwamitra and so many others. And all the 4 sons are born. Now, Dashrath is thinking that it's the right time for me to now hand over the kingdom. So one day he calls the assembly of the noble people who were in the administrative affairs to take their opinion. And he tells that all of you know very well that my ancestors have served this kingdom of Ayodhya very nicely. Now, he says, such says Valmiki Ramayana, Raja Parabhava Jushtam hi Dura Vaham Ajintendriyahi. He says that this the bhara of Raj, the weight of running the kingdom has been too heavy upon me. Why? Because he says, this kingdom cannot be ruled ajitendriya with somebody who does not have control over his mind and senses. And to the best of my ability, I have run this kingdom. So here comes the first qualification of a person wanting to rule, that he has to have controlled senses. Dashrath explains, it becomes, if you were to run a kingdom whimsically and the impulse of your mind and senses, it may be easy because you are not concerned with thousands and thousands of years of heritage or lineage to rule. It's all instant. And you are not even caring for the next generation. But when you have to care for further, you have to have control of mind and senses. Especially when you are a leader of any community. You may have a community of 5 people. It's not just a spiritual community. You are in a social group, say, for example. You have only just 10 people or 50 people or 100 people or 1,000 people. If you don't have controlled senses, you are not qualified to do. And what does this control of senses mean? One of the qualifications of Drishtadyumna in the Mahabharata to be selected as the commander-in-chief of the Pandav army. All of you know about Drishtadyumna, heard about him? He was selected as a commander-in-chief. One of his qualifications was, as mentioned in the council of the elders who were about to select. This is just before the war. They said, One very good thing about him is he listens to seniors when children them up. Very interesting. Amidst that he's valorous, he's powerful, he's chivalrous, he's so many. He listens to seniors. Why? Because in matters of war, those who have already fought hundreds of wars, war is not a situation that you can plan everything. It's not like our day-to-day thing that 7 o'clock you have to send children to the school and then they come from the school and then you just give them tiffin, then they play piano, then you take them to swimming. Then itself becomes a battlefield every day. But this war means it's unpredictable, no matter how much you plan, no matter how much analysis you have done about the strength of the enemy, anything can happen anytime. The morale can get down. You never know what your strength is until you actually start fighting the war. That's the way it is. Because right now we are all strong, we are 5 people, we will give our lives, but when you see 3 of your friends dead, then what your strength and morale is going to be, that you will realize only at that time. Nobody can make an assessment of that. That's why the war is unpredictable at all levels. And you therefore require guidance. And for those who are in power, to take guidance from someone is an act of humility. So unless we have that humility in the heart, when you take guidance from someone, you also, it makes a feeling to oneself that, oh, I'm actually in such a nice position, but actually I don't know how to do things and therefore I'm learning from someone. So it makes us feel that, oh, it would look, sometimes those who are egoistic people, they feel that, oh, I will look foolish. How can I actually? And that happens with men with power, those who are holding huge positions, great amount of power. You have armies and they did not have ordinary armies, they had Akshavani Senas. Lakhs and lakhs of horses, lakhs and lakhs of elephants, lakhs and lakhs of soldiers. So such a person, it's bound that they will get musical disease. They are bound to commit mistakes. So therefore here controlled senses not only means that he just does not have bad habits, but he's also, the mind is in control, he's willing to submit the mind to the guidance of others. So Dashrath is telling that the burden to rule a kingdom cannot be carried by a person whose senses are not controlled. Even Srila Prabhupada would mention that if one is not strict with himself in the principles of devotional service, all the services which we do, they will start becoming a burden. So if you don't have controlled mind and senses, whatever we do, that we will lose the chant. So that is the whole thing. And so Dashrath is telling, I have become old. And therefore I propose that my eldest son Ram, who is as powerful as Indra, he be appointed the next king. And then Dashrath says, also gives the reason to Dasrath. He says, Ram is a glorious man and he is the fittest person in my view to be the king. Then Dashrath says that I am telling this after a lot of thinking, not just because I am the king. Because it is possible for the council to think that, oh, you are the king and he's your son and therefore. He said, no, I am doing after a lot of thinking. So I request you to give your consent. Look at the leader and the character of Dashrath's leadership. He says this, I want you to give me your consent. And I don't want you to follow just because I am the king, therefore you follow what I am saying. He says, it is my desire, but let there be thinking in some other beneficial way. So if all of you collectively have some better ideas, some better thoughts, let us collectively think. And then He says, thinking by impartial, neutral people with opposing views, by grinding opposing views, by churning of opposing views, will give us a better clarity of coming to a decision. Now, sometimes when we read these things just get overlooked. If you are reading Ramayana on your own, probably you will overlook this because it's not exciting thing happening. And where is the main drama happening when we say that okay, Ram should be banished? We just want to jump to the thrill part. But if you read very carefully, you will see the principles laid down in leadership. Dashrath was not just an ordinary ruler. He was ruling kingdom based on dharma. That is why he says that I am very tired by managing this kingdom on the dharmic principles. And I have done that very nicely. So therefore he is inviting opposing views. Partial, impartial, neutral views. Talk about it. Let's discuss. This is my desire, my idea. So everybody starts glorifying that, oh Dashrath, whatever you have said, what the person whom you have selected, Ram, is fit to be the king. And there is an uproar in the whole assembly, as if an applause that we all approve. When Dashrath hears this applause, he is not yet convinced. He asks the king that, are you all just agreeing just because I say? I want to know the reasons which you have in your heart. That why do you want to see Ram as the king? Unless you give me the reasons, I won't agree. Why I am discussing these things? So that it gives us value to what it means when Ram is banished from the forest. It means you get an idea of whom you are banishing. So then the assembly starts replying. Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam says, one who is envious of the Lord experiences discomfort when he hears the glories. So I have 1.5 pages of only the qualities of Ram. So please bear and try to enjoy. If you are not enjoying listening the qualities of Ram, it's part of our heaven. Very interesting qualities. I'll read very fast. He is, the king say, he is Guna Devakalpasya. He has virtues like the Devatas. He is Priyan. He is liked by all. Anandan. He is a person who gives happiness. He is Satya Parakrama, having true valor. Atiriktaha Sarvebhyo Api Ishwakubhyaha. Greater than all the kings of Ishwaku clan. They were from the Ishwaku dynasty. He is greater so far than all of them. Vijitendriya, he has controlled senses. He is Satpurush, he is a good person. Ram is Satya Dharma Parayana, interested in truth and righteousness. This is interesting. Dharma Parayana, this word is used when you have a natural fascination, inclination, you have a bent. So Ram has a natural inclination towards truth and righteousness. Sometimes people are truthful and righteous, but not necessarily they have an inclination. So when they come in positions of power, their inclination change here and there. So right now I have not committed a crime or offense, but somebody who knows me well may think, okay, abhi tak to usne kuch nahi kiya, he's not done anything wrong, but he has such tendencies, he has such inclinations. So be careful what you expose him to. So here there is no fear because he's Satya Dharma Parayana. He has a natural inclination. Rama Dharma cha api Shriyasa Vinirvittaha Sakshat. Only Ram can make both righteousness and wealth combine. What does this mean? Wealth and righteousness don't coexist nicely together. This we are talking of Ram's time, not of this time. This time obviously. It's very difficult to see wealth and righteousness. Somebody who has a lot of wealth he may not be righteous. And mostly the wealth which those who are making millions and billions, it's not got with righteousness. Not with absolute righteousness at all. So all these qualities are not just ordinary qualities. Here the kings are speaking this. Means when a king speaks, he has a background of economics. He has a background of economic advisors, policies and planning and all this. Tulya Chandrasya Praja Suttave. He is equal to the moon in making people happy. And when a full moon comes on night, sometimes it gives us beautiful experience. Vasudhyaha Kshama Gunani. In the ability to forgive, he has the tolerance of the earth. Because the earth is tolerating all kinds of people on itself. And therefore, earth is considered one of the most tolerant entities. So Ram is compared to be like that. Brihaspati Gudya, in terms of intelligence, he has the intelligence of Brihaspati. Sakshat Shachipati Virya. And he is actually as powerful as Indra in Valor. Dharmagyaha, he knows righteousness. Satya Sandha, he is true to his word. Shilavan, he has good character. Anasuyaktaha, he has no envy. Shantaha, he has patience. Satyayataha, consoles those in troubles. Shlakshaha, he speaks good words. Kritagyata, he has gratitude. Vriducha, he is soft-natured. Sthira Chittata, he has stable mind. Sadabhavya, always an auspicious man. Not one, sometimes he does auspicious activities, sometimes not like that. He is always auspicious. Anasuyakta, he has no envy. Priyavadi, speaks delightfully. Bhutana, not just some, but all living entities he speaks nice. Satyavadicha, speaks truthfully. Upashita Vridyadhanam Brahmanam, worshippers to the aged Brahmanas. Bahushrutana, endued with knowledge of various science. This is not one person speaking, so many kings are speaking. From my side, I say why he should, because he is this, because he is that. Vishal, the efficient man. Sarva Shastreshu, he is efficient in all weapons. Known to celestial demons, devatas and human beings. Vidyavrata Snana. Vidyavrata Snana means he has took bath in the vow of studies. Means he has a regular habit of reading the Shastras. Vidyavrata means he has taken a vrat, Vidyavrata Snana, to take bath in knowledge in scriptures, means to regularly study. Yathavat Sangavedavit. Systematically he has learned the six elements of scriptures, the six branches of Vedic philosophy. The six branches of Vedic philosophy are Shiksha, Vyakaran, Chanda, Nirukta, Jyotish and Kalpa, these six systems of Vedic philosophy, the six branches. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, in the introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam at various places, that somebody who has to be well versed in the scriptures should know these things properly. So Ram knew all this very nicely. Shrestha Gandharve, best in music. Kalyanabhijana, one who has the best of relatives. Now this is also considered fortune. These days we have people and friends, but we don't have best friends or best relatives. How many of us can say we have very good relatives in life? Why does it matter? It matters in tough times, in dry times. Somebody who does not have good friends and good relatives, such a person will be fooled by his own mind. But you have good friends, good relatives around you, it's a protection system. It's very good. He's a sadhu, he's a gentleman. Adinatma, one who is not weak in the mind. Mahamati, one who has great wisdom. Puna Agyatya, Sangrama. Paripratshati Kushana. Whenever he comes, Puna Agyatya from Sangrama means whenever he comes from a battle, he does not just start celebrating. He reaches out to the ordinary people in the town and starts talking and inquires for the welfare of everybody. Satyavali, the speaker of truth. Maheshvasaha, one who has a very great bow. Vriddha Sevi, one who serves the elders in the society. His Jitendriya, one whose senses are defeated or who has won over the senses. Smita Purva Abhibhashicha, one who smiles before speaking. Dharma Shita, one who takes shelter of righteousness. Yokta Shriyasam, procurer of benefits. Now, he is a procurer of benefits. How do you procure benefits? By doing pious activity. Means Ram is a person who always is thinking of what good should I perform, because that's only how you procure benefits. So that's a very good thing. That's a nice way of being greedy. If you want to be wealthy, just look for an opportunity to serve some needy, some help. Someone who needs help. Participate in a way you can do good activities. Na tatha ruchi vigriha. He is not interested in talks which are mundane. Prajalpalana tattvagyaha. Prajapalana tattvagyaha. He knows the ins and outs of Prajapalana, of administration, taking care of people. Na raga upahitindriya. He is not hit by the passion. And therefore, we all propose that not only this world, but Ram is capable to rule all the three worlds. So everybody is having a sigh, finally. If we have just one quality nicely, you will be recognized worldwide, you will get a Nobel Prize. One quality out of all this. And they are so excited saying, Hantyeva Vadhyam, we have just few qualities remaining. He kills all those who are worth to be slayed, and he does not punish one who does not deserve. And he is not enraged by such people who do not deserve to be slain. Na kupyati avadhi. Therefore, that even in his war times or in his anger time, he knows where to fling the sword. So, Dashrath is totally satisfied now that his decision has been approved by everyone, and not just because he is the king, but willfully everybody is approving this decision, and therefore he is excited. So Dashrath calls for Ram. He asks the ministers, decorate the entire city, soon we will look for an auspicious time. Ram is summoned in front of the assembly, and he is informed that very soon we will be coronating you as the king of Ayodhya. Ram is pleased to offer this service, but at the same time he is also, Ram by nature is a shy person. He is not like flamboyant. That, oh, finally you recognized all my qualities. Not like that. He is slightly shy that so many seniors and elders are glorifying you. So, and he senses the responsibility, senses the burden which is going to be on his shoulders. Very gratefully he accepts this position. Dashrath orders the entire city to be decorated with flags and flowers, and it is explained that all the main highways connecting to Ayodhya were all sprinkled with perfume and scents, so that people who are going to come from different places should feel the fragrance. I was just thinking, one time I was traveling in Malaysia, and one of the airports had one of the largest body shops there. So there was one person with me from London. So he told, let's go to this shop. I had never been to a body shop, so I never knew what is a body shop first. There is a body shop. I said, what is called body shop? So you see these perfumes and scents and all these creams and so many things. And so many scents. My God. You name the brand, it was there probably. Racks and racks of scent and everything you can experiment. So just doing this and so much scent. But all the scent together was not giving the fragrance to the entire airport. Because that scent was, somehow it is designed in such a way only somebody who comes close to you may feel the scent. That much. I was just contemplating when Dashrath perfumed at highways, the city, how much fragrance would that have produced? Like having a jungle of sandalwood trees. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is described. It is mentioned, there is reference, having a forest of sandalwood trees, so it's fragrant. You just feel very positive and nice, beautiful ambience. So they had such a mechanism to put it. And lot of sandalwood paste was used. All the decorations began. In front of the assembly, Dashrath gave 3 instructions to Ram. He said, now you are going to be coronated as a king. You should observe these 3 things very carefully. First, be even more humble than you are at present. And always keep your senses under control. Leave the bad habits of desire and wrath. Keep it aside. Because now as a ruler, you require more stability than what you have right now. Very, very important for a leader. When it makes that be more humble, means it is be ready. If you are not humble, you will never be able to take guidance and suggestions. It's not possible. That can only come when you are humble. Very important for a king. Very, very important quality for a king. In modern times, the ministers, everybody has an economic advisor. So they have advisors. But here it's not just that. It's more than an advisor. Somebody who has an authority on you. If you are committing a blunder, he will actually put his leg in between, put his nose in between, whatever it is. Then he says a very political statement, keep all your ministers happy. That's very essential. Because if the ministers are not happy, they will conspire against you and bring things down. And also focus on how to make common people happy. Because common people don't understand big policies and how it's going to give you, how it's going to help you 20 years down the line. You want an immediate thing. That's what common people immediately want. Sometimes in the history of the world, good leaders have been sacked and the history textbooks have condemned them just because they could not deliver to the immediate needs of the people. Where they have contributed for a greater good for their country, even today it's all because of that. And worse people just because they observe these details. So a good king, if he is not observant on the immediate things and only talks about long term, that is also a problem. So Dashrath is telling these things to Ram. So Ram is overwhelmed. Ram is very obedient, he understands this. He decides to take blessings of Mother Kaushalya. He goes out of the kingdom and starts approaching Kaushalya's room. And there he sees that Mother Kaushalya is actually in a meditating pose. She was doing her daily sadhana. Very interesting to read these things. Because these days you don't have kings who do all this. Of course, the Prime Minister of India, when he came to the United States, he came during a time when he was fasting. And because of that, it became a world news. And everybody knew. Obama was also surprised. They had a private lunch. Now, what lunch did both of them have? So he also didn't have anything. He was also taking juice. Obama made a statement, I don't know how many of you heard about it. He He said that I have heard about yoga, but seeing the power and the strength of this Prime Minister of India, who is 63, 64 years of so he says, seeing the strength of this person, that for these 5 days he has been meeting hundreds and thousands of people, I am inspired to do yoga. Just see, hundreds, thousands of people are preaching. Yoga is this, yoga gives you good health, but it didn't matter. But when he saw somebody like him, like a politician, and he saw he doesn't get tired. He wakes up before me, he sleeps after me, and throughout the day the number of meetings he is having is overwhelming. Actually, even the entire cabinet who was following with him, they also were exhausted. They would say even after the late night 10 o'clock program, he would shake hands with 600 people. Now, if you have to just shake hands with 600 people, you are at least smiling and speaking, okay, how is everything fine? That also takes 2.5 hours. That much. So they were also thoroughly exhausted. Seeing all this, Obama said, I want to do yoga. Because I haven't done. So it makes a lot of difference. When you read, Kaushalya was in the room, she was doing her meditation, and Ram, followed by Lakshman. Lakshman is always with Ram. When I talk Ram, you should understand Lakshman is there nearby, by default. So Ram and Lakshman enter and they see Kaushalya is meditating. So they don't disturb her meditation, they allow it to complete. So meanwhile Sita also comes. And all of them are seated and they allow Kaushalya to finish her sadhana and then they take blessings. They share and they tell that Dashrath has desired that I should be installed as the king. So Kaushalya is very delighted and very happy with this news. So many reasons why this is happening we will hear later. And she blesses Ram for this wonderful opportunity. Dashrath tells Ram that now you should sleep, you should start fasting, you should observe a fast before you are installed. So sleep on kusha grass. You and Sita should sleep on kusha grass and not on soft beds. Because before performing auspicious acts, one should do some kind of austerities. So kusha grass has great importance. So they are told to sleep in a mat of kusha. If you look in Google or Amazon, you will find kusha mats. It's $39 for a yoga size mat. I just got it recently. Very auspicious. So Ram immediately gets into all those details. Meanwhile, Dashrath goes in his chamber and he starts experiencing some bad omens. He just gets some feeling that something wrong may happen. And because of that, he consults some astrologers. And the astrologers inform that certain planetary position in your charts are going to take place in such a way that that may create an inauspicious moment for you. And therefore, you should install Ram as soon as possible. Now, what was that position which was happening? The Ramayana very clearly explains about the positions also. In your birth chart, when the planets like Sun, Surya, Mars, Mangal and Rahu, they come near your birth sign. Birth sign means is the sign, birth star means is the star at the point where the sun is positioned at the point of your birth. So somebody has Capricorn, somebody has Pisces, Leo, like that. That is birth sign. So if Surya, Mangal or Rahu are coming near the birth sign, that indicates great tragedies which could amount to death. This is the normal astrological thing. And Dashrath is already old, so he feels probably I may die and this thing should not disturb the installation of Ram. Why I am mentioning this detail is, even personalities like Dashrath, they didn't do anything whimsically without astrological calculations. So sometimes in our process to takes surrender to process of surrendering to Krishna, we like to bash many of the other Vedic principles. Oh, astrology, we have surrendered to Krishna, sarva dharma parityajya. Krishna will take care. So I am not in that view that we need to take shelter of astrology. That's not the view I am trying to present. The thing is, just like in a family, you take support of each other. If you are not having good health, you take shelter of a doctor, you take support of a doctor. If you need some help, you ask some devotee or some person. When you are taking help of so many. Similarly, astrology is another kind of a system which is there in the universe. There is no harm if you are taking help of that whenever you need some guidance. But that does not mean that that becomes your only point of existence in life. That is what is condemned. A devotee takes support, he takes guidance, but that does not mean that astrology takes over his bhakti itself. That is what is condemned. So even great noble people, they have, even the Mahabharata war. The Mahabharata war happened on the day of Ekadashi. And it did not happen on a whimsical day. There was a meeting of both parties along with the sadhus assembled, the munis at that time. And then they calculated an auspicious time. According to this, we should actually start the war this. And the blowing of the conch shell during Mahabharata war was also at the Muhurat, at the right time. So nothing was, if you read Ramayana and Mahabharata, you will see all this. So particular, these kings, they would not leave any room unless destiny has not decided that they should lose. This king cannot lose because everything else is perfect. So therefore, if they lost, they knew that we have done our karma perfectly right, and then we were destined to lose, so they accept. They don't have loose ends here and there. But for us, our surrender is not right, astrology is not right, nothing is right actually. And Krishna will take care, Krishna will take care. And then if Krishna takes care, then instead of thinking that Krishna did it, we think that, my intelligence, it was the right decision, I took it nicely. We tend to take the whole credit for us. And if Krishna does not take care, still we try to take credit. Maybe Krishna did not desire, he wants me to get more purified. As if Krishna is all doing so things only personally for you. You are so dear to him that he is personally taking care of it. That is also another way of egoistically glorifying yourself. Maybe Krishna does not want this in my life. Maybe Krishna will do this. So sometimes when the presence of Krishna in our life should not become cheap. A devotee, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, who is a Krishna conscious devotee? One who thinks that everything in his life is coming from Krishna. That is a Krishna conscious devotee. Such a simple definition. So if good is happening, it's because of Krishna. If bad is happening, that is Krishna's wish. Yeah, but that is not just like that. It's with a sense of gratitude. A devotee, when he says that something bad is happening, is a wish of Krishna. He is grateful in his misery, not that he is depressed and distressed. And when good things happen, still he is not egoistic and flamboyant. He is still grateful. So the element of gratitude determines how grateful we are, that determines our depth in our actually advancement in spirituality. Gratitude is not something which has to be spoken, it is more than that, it has to be felt in our hearts. So Dashrath, after calculating all this, he senses this, he approaches the astrologer and then he says, we want to do the coronation. So immediately he says, it is my desire that tomorrow morning itself Ram should be coronated as the king. It should be declared that he will be coronated as the king. So immediately Vashishta and all approve, and the news starts spreading in the town. So it's still a day, it's the daytime, and they decide. Tomorrow morning means there is a whole day going to pass, and next day, early morning after dawn, the ceremony of installing Ram will begin. What happens actually at that time? The news spreads in the town, all the ministers start moving, everybody is gathering, somebody is coming with flowers, just like you see on a Janmashtami day, you will see people, somebody is coming with a basket of flowers, somebody is coming with cans of milk, somebody with yogurt, somebody is giving, They see even the horses and the elephants, they seem to be excited doing activity after some time. So many movements are happening in the town. The streets are being decorated. Suddenly at that time, one person called Manthara, she was in the room of Kaikeyi. She goes in the balcony and she's seeing all of this happening. She's surprised. What is this going on? Why are the roads being made vacant as if some VIP is going to come? There were trees which were being trimmed. Trees full of lights, like here you have on Christmas time you have trees, so those were in Valmiki Ramayana mentions. Trees in the shape of lights. Like that. They were also being put. The roads were widened as if to avoid all kinds of traffic. Perfumes were being spread and she saw all festivity. Manthara's mind was delighted that something good is going to happen. So she asked one of the persons, one of the dasis, what is this going on? See, Manthara was one of the primary dasis there, one of the chief of all the maid servants, because Kaikeyi was the dearmost queen to Dashrath. Because Kaikeyi was very beautiful and attractive in bodily features. And therefore Dashrath naturally was inclined and fascinated by her beauty. And because she is the main queen, although Kaushalya was senior, Kaikeyi would actually have her ways in the kingdom amongst all the co-wives. A point to be mentioned is that Dashrath did not just have 3 wives, as we know, Kaushalya, Sumitra and Kaikeyi, but he had other 350 wives also. So there were almost 353 wives of Dashrath. He kept marrying because Parshuram had taken a vow to remove all the Kshatriyas from this earth. And he kept killing. So his process was so simple. He was fed up of Kshatriya kings fighting and civilizations being changed. So he decided that I will just do one parikrama of the earth, and as and when I come across a king, I will finish. So but he was doing rounds. So like that he did 21 rounds. And sometimes when you come at a place, so then there are many kings nearby. So you are not just having a one particular path. You go here and there. All. So whenever Parshuram would come, he would kill all the existing kings. The only condition he would not kill a person was if he was getting married. So whenever Parshuram would come nearby, Dashrath would arrange for a marriage. So in that way he had 350 queens. So he avoided 350 times Parshuram getting killed. So he had a lot of queens. But none of them could produce a child. 36,000 years. Look at the frustration. Anyways. So Manthara is seeing all this happening. She is the main dasi and she does not know. She asks one of the dasis, what is this going on? It seems that king is going to have a great celebration. Or is some great person coming in this town. So then one of the dasis say that just a couple of hours ago the king has decided that Ram will be installed as the next king tomorrow. And the moment Manthara hears this, she is furious. Anger takes over her personality. Envy rises in her heart. The reasons for which nobody understands till now. She immediately goes inside the room and she sees Kaikeyi. She is very peaceful in her beautiful bed with her silken robes. She was a pampered queen. And seeing that, Manthara is thinking how to now incite this hatred and passion in her. Generally, it is observed amongst living beings that we transmit negativity faster than positivity. Like if you are so happy and you meet somebody else, you may not transmit that positivity. But if you are distressed and frustrated, that transmission takes place very fast. And it takes with full energy, something like that. And especially if you are stung with envy, if your mind gets stung with envy, then you will ensure that that person also starts holding your opinions. Because all you want to do is spread it. That's the nature of envy. Mantra was a very crooked person, so she starts scheming. She goes there and then Kaushalya, Kaikeyi just asks, what has happened to you, Mantra? So Mantra just hisses. Sometimes, you want to even show that you are angry, you don't even speak something, you just take a deep sigh. When you just do like this, especially these things may be happening in families around, that you don't communicate, you just take a deep breath. So that person knows. Haribol is such a word that it's applicable at all times. If it's a birthday, Haribol. If it's a celebration, it is Haribol. If it's a disaster, Haribol. People use Haribol everywhere. So mantra is burning with anger. With a long face and a grave face, she just hisses like a serpent, as explained by Tulsidas in Ramcharitmanas and also by Valmiki. She just hissed like a serpent. Like a serpent, if you have heard, at least in movies we hear. She just hissed, she did not speak. So Kaushalya asked, Kaikeyi asked, Mantra, you are a very saucy girl, I know. And you have certain bad habits of making your way. So tell me what is the reason? Why are you behaving like this? So Mantra tells Kaikeyi, you are such a fool. You are lying on this bed so peaceful, where you don't even understand that such a big calamity is just about to strike you. What should I say further? So Kaikeyi got worried. That why is Mantra speaking like this? So Kaikeyi says, Mantra says, Kaikeyi, do you know? Has the king informed you that he is going to install Ram as the next king tomorrow? So Kaikeyi is not disturbed. She says, no, he has not yet informed, but he may be soon about to inform. He said, no. The king has come under the influence of Kaushalya. Kaikeyi, being pampered by the king, sometimes she would misbehave with the other queens, with the co-wives. And therefore Kaushalya, although she was a senior, she was being treated as a maid servant of Kaikeyi by Kaikeyi herself. So this point was exploited by Mantra. She said that sometimes you have misbehaved with Kaushalya. So here Kaushalya has actually conspired with the king that Ram should become the king, next king. And this is because, and the proof of this is, king has sent Bharat to Kaikeyi out from Ayodhya at this point. Do you even know why he was sent there? It was all on the words of Kaushalya. Because you have misbehaved with Kaushalya, therefore Kaushalya is doing all this. Now just see, Mantra is envious for some reason. And therefore, she is making up a story. It's a fact that Bharat was sent to his maternal home, but it was not an instruction of the king. If he was invited by his mama, like sometimes it happens, relatives invite and parents say, okay, go. So Dashrath had allowed Bharat to go to his maternal uncle's place. That's a truth. Kaikeyi was misbehaving with Kaushalya. That's also a truth. Ram is going to be installed as a king, which has been decided. That is also truth. These three independent truths are connected in a way of conspiracy. This is it. Trying to find the angle of conspiracy in this. Yeah. So she manipulated, she's not spoken false totally, but just some statements are out of place. And Kaushalya sent Ram. And why she said? Because she wanted Ram to become the king. So she just, and Manthara very expertly exploited this angle. After saying this, she said, your husband keeps speaking good about you, but factually he has created benefits only for Kaushal. Manthara Kaikeyi hears this, but she does not take it very seriously. From her neck she brings out a beautiful garland full of pearls and diamonds, and she gives this to Manthara. And she says, oh Manthara, you can never ever give me a better news than this what you have given me. It is such a news of celebration. Why are you actually burning with envy? If Ram becomes the king, what is the problem? In fact, he has treated me more dear, he has treated me with greater love and respect than his own mother. And it really doesn't matter whether Bharat is king or Ram king, because I know Ram, he will not forget about me, even his own brothers, he will treat as his own very life and soul. So under Ram's leadership, everybody will be happy. There is no reason for you to be great, to have this grief of sorrow. And I am so surprised that you are behaving this way. This is Kaikeyi's first response to Manthara. Manthara is still not convinced. So Manthara just makes a laugh. And she says, mentally I feel sorrowful. I feel that you are so sorrowful for you. She says, actually I am a maid servant. What do I deserve in this kingdom? How much does it matter to me that whether Ram becomes a king or Bharat becomes a king? Because I am still going to be a maid servant. For me it doesn't matter at all. So why should I have any motivation for feeling angry? You should understand what reason I am feeling angry for. My concern is for you. You are so naive. You have no understanding. You are so simple. The king always comes to you. He pampers you and gives you some gold and diamonds and other things, and you just get delighted. You get delighted with all these gifts. But in reality, you don't have a sense or assessment of your position. Do you know if Ram becomes the king, Bharat will become a secondary person in this kingdom. When Bharat becomes secondary, all his wives, they will be treated as maid servants by Sita, who will then be the queen of this place. And then your son and your daughter-in-law, all of them will become the secondary citizens of this place, and nobody will treat them with respect. I know Ram's qualities. In matters of time of holding power, sometimes you don't trust your own people. She starts saying, Ram, he only loves Lakshman so much. Why? Because Lakshman is always around him. Now this is another calculation. Just see. You love someone. That's true. But that does not mean that you hate someone. Say for example, I have a very good friend. That does not mean that if I am good to him, that means that should be proved by how I am bad to others. So if Ram loves Lakshman, that means he will be hateful towards Bharat, Shatrugna and everybody. Otherwise his love is not true. This is a kind of a definition which Manthara is trying to create. But this is not in reality. Life doesn't run like that. You may like someone a lot, but at the same time, you are not with someone else for a long time, but that does not mean you hate them. But Manthara is exploiting this. She is saying, have you seen, Lakshman is like a shadow. And Bharat's shadow is Shatrugna. But Bharat and Shatrugna have both been sent there. Do you understand why it is? The reason is, if Shatrugna would have been here, if only Bharat was at his maternal place and Shatrugna was here, even Shatrugna would have tried to oppose Ram's being the king, or he would have alerted you on this. But right now, Kaushalya has ensured that Bharat and his soulmate or whatever personality who is like a shadow to him, both of them are out of this place, and therefore there is no one in this kingdom who can actually give you a good counsel. You are just about to lose When Kaikeyi hears this, she gets so disturbed. She gets angry with Mantra. And she says, Mantra, if you ever speak this again, or if you try to sow a seed of discord in our wonderful family of Ayodhya, I will cut your tongue. It is the characteristics of such ugly, lame and hunchback people. Kaikeyi describes, she quotes a verse that the Shastras say, somebody who is lame and has a hunchback and also is blind with one eye should not be trusted. Why? Because such a characteristic, when you get such a feature, it's part of your bad karma which you had. Means only when I have been so crooked and weird in my past lives, then I get such a body. And she says, but still I love you so much, and therefore as advice, I can never think of punishing you, Kaikeyi. Because I love you. Because Kaikeyi was serving, Mantra was serving Kaikeyi right from her birth. So in a sense that she was older too, Kaikeyi, Mantra was older. So she chastises Kaikeyi, Mantra. And she starts glorifying the qualities of Ram. She says, Ram is all righteous. The elders have trained him properly. He has proper gratitude. He speaks the truth. He has a clean conduct. He is the eligible. And he will protect the brothers very nicely. And therefore, take out this from your mind, that Ram will ever be, or this decision of Ram becoming king will be bad. And then Kaikeyi says, for me, Ram is as lovable as Bharat or even more. Look at the emotions which Kaikeyi has for Ram. Mantra has failed in her second attempt to create a discord.